How do?
Hello again.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, this is second rerun with Aimee as I cocked the first one up with a GoPro. That's why she's laughing. Mental health. So I'm just going to let Aimee start where she wants to.
Yeah.
Fire away you go, lass.
Yeah,
Just
so
sit as comfortable as you want.
I know it's really nice, isn't it, in here? It's a lovely day as well outside. I actually think that the weather is really good because it uplifts me and it's given me a good position to actually talk about my mental health. So I feel it's a real positive.
I'm glad you said that because I thought I've invited her on a podcast and she's talking about the weather.
And in the north. I'm sorry, apologies.
Yeah, enough about that.
So
away you go, fire away, as it were, lass.
So going back to around the age of 11, maybe a bit younger than that, I started to notice and feel really different. I seemed to be quite insular and isolated, really, rather than what my other sisters were experiencing, and friends and family and going to school and things like that. So it was quite strange, and, you know, I was sort of brushed off to say that it would be down to hormones growing up. And also around the age of 11, my parents separated, so it was very much focused on there's changes in the family. But when I was 11, it's really quite frightening to think of it like this now because I've got a 10-year-old daughter. But I felt really lonely in like a really dark place. I struggled to motivate myself and to go to school. I would come up with, I don't feel well today, any excuse under the sun so I could try and skip school. And I just don't know why, you know, I don't know why I felt like that. Further on down the line in high school, I was bullied, and that was a real detrimental effect on me because it would then escalate how I felt. I'm not worthy, I shouldn't be here. And it was probably in my early teens that I started to notice that I didn't want to live anymore.
Can I ask you why you were bullied? Or
yeah, unfortunately, I was in a position where my clothes, we had lots of animals at home. There was a lot of love in the house for animals, and it went onto my clothes and you could smell it. So children are cruel and they picked up on it, and it was there. My barrier was because my clothes smelt, but I was actually a really nice person. I would do anything for anybody. But it was something to pick on. It was easy. It was a subject. It went round school, and, you know, I was known as smelly. And also, it's daft, my surname is Kujawa. And I used to get the nice ones like Kujawa Power or Aimee Kujawa has flower power. But then I'd get Aimee Kujawa is a chihuahua. And then... To be fair, I also used to go around and people used to be amused by this. I used to do like a Chinese kung fu chop or something and be like, Kujawa. But so I made light of it. But because they were calling me a chihuahua, it then resonated with my clothes smelling, and it was just an extra add-on. So it was horrible. But I ended up going to 4 different high schools, which was it was difficult for my education. I'm not the most intelligent person, but I think if I'd gone through one mainstream high school, I probably would have got my GCSEs. But in the end, I just didn't care about them. I just wasn't interested at all.
Was that moving or because you didn't fit in?
Bit of both, really.
Wow.
Parents have always remained in the same homes, but it was really difficult because I loved my mum and you know, I loved my dad. I still do, but it was so hard because I didn't understand why they were separated, and I just wanted to be with both of them. I wanted life to be normal the way that I'd associated it with prior to them separating. You know, it was difficult times. Divorces are not the most pleasant to experience. They did try the very best to shield what was going on between them two in front of us. But as you'll know, when you get upset, you can't help it sometimes.
Very difficult.
Yeah. So I would hear arguing, and it was concerning. So it was tough. I couldn't make a decision. So in the end, I stayed with my mum, but moved high school because I was bullied. But then I moved to live with my dad in the final year, and I went to a very posh, quite a posh from what I had experienced, high school called Holmes Chapel. And oh yes, it was Holmes Chapel. And
Chapel.
I was bullied there because I had a Scouse accent.
You're borderline Scouse, aren't you?
I literally am a southerner trapped up north. And to be fair, I actually really like it up north. I don't think I'd ever go back down south. Too busy lifestyle, very different people. But yeah, I was born in Redhill in Surrey, and then my dad moved up north as he was training to be a nurse, and unfortunately at the time there was no positions available down south. So that was difficult because although we had family in Bolton, our immediate family was down south in Surrey. So again, that where's your escape? My kids can go to Nana, to Grandad, aunties, uncles, because we've built a community of family where we live now. So it's very different. If they don't want to speak to me, they've definitely got other people to talk to. So yeah, moved there, got bullied a little bit, but I think it was because I just went in with that I don't give a shit attitude anymore. I don't want to be a popular person. I'm not arsed. I don't really want to make friends because I just felt so isolated with everything that I'd experienced in my years up until this point, that people challenged me because they thought I was this bit of a hard nut. And they thought, oh, look at this. All right there, mate, calm down. Coming into their very nice school. And yeah, I was challenged.
Is it because you shut down and won't communicate with people?
I remember somebody saying to me, when you stood in front of class, as that's what they do when you're a new person, oh, stand in front of class and say hi to everyone. Great, thanks. I just stood there and I just had my head down and I just, like, arms folded, really defensive, really closed down, just not interested in anyone. Fortunately, there were some really lovely people who said, come and sit over here, let's join in, integrated me into school life. And in the end, I remember it was the first time I actually stood up for myself in high school. There was a girl, I loved to dye my hair, and I dyed it red. And this girl, Eileen her name was, she was an absolute arse. And she comes right up into my face and she's like, why have you copied my hair colour? And I just thought, man, I'm not a sheep. Fuck off. So I stood up for myself and I got respect for that, which was quite nice. It was, the tables started to turn and I thought, oh, actually I can do this. So wasn't interested in education at all. Just never really grasped it. Hated school for the reasons of being bullied. And I still, to this day, don't miss when people say, well, when you leave school, you'll miss it. I don't miss it at all. And I don't miss the routine of it neither, because I'm still doing it, taking my own children to school now. Yeah. So ended up deciding to go down the path of working with animals and horses. Had horses majority of my life. And again, I think there was another perception, oh, well, you're really wealthy because you've got horses. No, it's not the case at all. We sacrifice things to have horses, like the nice cars.
Oh, yeah, I've got friends like that. Yeah. And it's hard work having horses, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah,
early,
every morning.
Late, yeah.
Even at Christmas, and you think, I just want a day off, but you can't because you've got an animal dependent on you. Yeah. But I decided that at 16, I want to go to Cornwall. I just want to get away. I want to start a fresh life down there. And fortunately, they had families. So at 18 years of age, if I'd have gone down, because I'm born in August, I was a young 16-year-old. And they had families that could take me to look after me rather than live on site at the college, which was great because I experienced living for 9 months on a milking parlour. It was fantastic. I got to watch the birth of a calf and helped out. It was just a really, really good experience. But I went to Duchy College and studied horse riding and nutrition and everything, equine. And again, I got targeted, but it was a bit different. I got targeted because I find people in the industry, the equine industry, are either really down to earth, just want to get on, do a bit of hacking, do whatever they want to do. And then you get the really competitive arseholes who think they are God, the be all and end all. And I'd have people sitting there going, watched you ride before? Well, you're double sitting during your trot. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
just, yeah. We'll move past that one.
Yeah, come on.
But yeah, so I missed home then. As much as at the point where I'd moved with my dad and tried to go through my GCSEs, I'd made a really strong bond with my mum, and I just really missed home. I was a proper home in Pigeon. I'd gone all the way down to Cornwall in it's September, and I turned 16 on the 5th of August, so I was a baby still.
It's quite a big thing at 16 to sort of leave home and move away.
It was really, when I look back, it was the best year of my life, and it set me up for a lot of things, which I'm so grateful for. And I remember being driven down there the day before enrolment, and my little sister was in absolute agony because she didn't want me to leave her. It was just me and her at the time. And I thought, I was really upset the night that we spent in the hotel thinking, I don't think I can do this. And on the day of enrolment, I just said, see you in 6 weeks. And I was dead shocked at that. Really enjoyed college. It gave me a sense of freedom. I was a little shit as well. I just got as much as I could out of it. Ended up sneaking into their on-site pub, which was called Sam's Bars. Ended up going in there, get us a drink, and managed to chat some of the older lads up, and I'd end up wasted every other night. It was brilliant. Getting up dead early to go and sort the horses out. You'd have to get up at 4 a.m.
Oh.
Some nights I didn't go to sleep just because I was so pissed. I thought, well, if I go to sleep, I'm going to wake up worse. So I stayed awake and just carried on. Riding drunk's hilarious.
Cool.
Moving on. But when it was half term, well, during the weekends, everybody who was local to the college would go home, and I was on my own. There was very little people that actually came from afar like me, and it got me down because I'd end up having to go to college for my lunches and my tea, and I was a bus ride away, so it wasn't as if I was a 10-15 minute walk, and there was just nothing to do. So it was too expensive to get a train on a Friday from Plymouth to come all the way up to Crewe. So we just couldn't do it. It was every 6 to 8 weeks I'd come home. And it would be great. I'd be elated. I'd be nervous as hell. 16-year-old being taken to the train station by a responsible adult at the college, but then left at the platform. Get on the train, and from that journey to home, I've got some amazing stories, some amazing memories from being on the train, the people I met. But going back was horrendous. I would sit on a bench with my mum, and I would hold her and I would cry and I'd say, don't make me do this. But she knew, and the strength it must have taken her as a mother to say, no, get on that train, because she knew when I got back to the other side, it'd only take me a couple of hours and I'd be back into the routine. It was that whole separation anxiety and doing something that I did enjoy, but I didn't know it at the time. Although I wouldn't change it, I'd ideally have liked to have experienced it when I was around the 18-year mark.
Yeah.
Bit more mature, bit more knowing about myself, but then the life that I have now, I wouldn't have gained, so I can't regret it. But while I was in between home and college, I would get really down again. I would give lots of energy to people around me, but when I was on my own, I would just get really low, dark thoughts, lights would go off in my head, struggle. The way that I think when I'm anxious, depressed, or my diagnosis, which I'll go into, kicks in, it's like a conveyor belt of thoughts that don't stop. And it's a conveyor belt of negative thoughts that go round and escalate, and they get louder and louder and louder. And you've got to be quite strong to break it. and you've got to know the techniques on how to break it, and it doesn't happen always. But I think now in my life, I'm so fortunate to have people around me that I can say, I feel like death, and I feel like is upon me, and I feel like I want to die because I've got no other option and no other way out. And I never used to have that up until recently, so I'm really fortunate.
Would you be comfortable saying that to people who didn't know you? Because obviously the people who know you know where you're at. So if people didn't, would they be thinking, well, I'm thinking that people, if you said that to a group of people who don't, they'd be thinking,
yeah,
you know, attention seeking.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, everything down them sort of lines.
Yeah.
Because they don't know.
That is something that is so relevant to the conversation, because before my community that I have, I wasn't able to express how I was feeling, and I would get classed as an attention seeker. I like the sound of my own voice. I'm just doing this because I want to create drama. People wouldn't understand me, and it was really difficult because it would prevent me from speaking out when I really wanted support at that time, because I was in crisis.
I've thought that of people.
Yeah.
You know, years gone by, when I look back, that's what you do, isn't it?
And, you know, I can explain as well, Sam, that there is some situations that I've been in my life, and I know people have done it for manipulation techniques. So I know there is a very double-edged sword to mental health, but it's situationally, I think.
For me now, you always have to fall on the side of people are unwell.
Yeah.
And if people are sort of riding that train, as it were,
yeah,
you know, so be it, but you've got to fall on the side of people who are unwell. Whereas, I think a lot of people are on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is no understanding, no real understanding. Like I say, I've been part of that, because when you look back, you know, you always stand up for your mates or whatever, but now you sort of look at people and you can see, or I can see sort of vulnerabilities and that, or that people are different, and, you know, sort of chinks in the armour and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
It's like Holly, bless her, you know.
Oh, amazing lady.
When you look at Holly, she's a fantastic governor. Yeah, Holly was one of the first people interviewed on mental health. Fantastic governor. You know, she cared about people, empathy, you know, always checking on people. If there's an incident, you know, the incident gets dealt with, but she's looking, is everyone all right? Does anyone need to go home? That sort of thing. You know, but you could also see, well, I don't think a lot of people, you know, necessarily see things in people or are looking, are they? Because most people, and it's not a criticism, that are just
so busy with their
they're
own
looking
life.
after themselves.
Yeah,
and they might not see that, you know, someone else is struggling or have time for them or whatever.
Also, it might grate on somebody, and it might make somebody think, oh, they might clash in personality.
Oops,
and
sorry.
They might not want to be able to sort of divide their rational thinking. So, but the reason why I said manipulation is something that I can get into a little bit later, which will make sense. So anyone who thinks at this very moment in time I'm cold-hearted, you're completely wrong. So coming back I made the decision, going back to Cornwall, that I just couldn't stay there. I'd done a year and I needed to have another one to go. But I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I need to be at home. And this was probably the June time that I arrived home. Really lost. Went into dental nursing. I thought, right, so family work in the NHS. I should go into the NHS. I have no purpose in life. I don't know what I'm doing.
What?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I know, I'll be a dental nurse.
I'll go into the NHS where it doesn't require any particularly difficult qualifications, and I'll go through an apprenticeship. Fucking hated it.
Well, you did it?
I did it, yeah. So I did dental nursing for a couple of months at one establishment, then left, and just when I left, it's because I just absolutely hated being around the environment that I was in. There was difficult dentists that were working old school, and one of the things that I found I was so interested in and became almost obsessed with was cleanliness. So it was almost like a little bit of OCD. And like the surgeries, when you would walk into them, they would absolutely stink of the disinfectant spray, and it was alcohol in there, so it would really reek. But there was one dentist who, fortunately, is now retired, and I'm not sure whether he's still living, but he'd wear the same pair of gloves all day, different patients, wouldn't change them, and he would say to me, "Why are you changing your gloves?" And I was 17, and I couldn't challenge this person. He was a partner of the practice. However, I knew that if I'd remained, I'd end up blowing the whistle, and things could have been quite detrimental for me.
How sad is that?
I was frightened, absolutely petrified. Also, another reason why I left was there was a lady there who was the head nurse who didn't particularly like me, and she tried to set me up. She asked me to go and take a bag of petty cash that I'd never taken up before upstairs and put it in the safe, which I did. And then I was later accused of stealing money from the petty cash. Thankfully, the partners and another senior nurse were already aware of this. So what she tried to plan for me didn't come out to fruition. So thankfully, because I didn't want to lose my job that way for something that I'd never done. So again, my vulnerabilities, they were targeted on, they were looked on. She knew that she could manipulate that situation. And you know what, I forgive this lady, because now going down the line, I understand that she was severely depressed. She had split up with her partner. She was pregnant at the time. She was literally hand to mouth. She had nothing. So I understand the reason behind why she did it, but I'm not saying it's right. But I forgive her because I don't want to hold on to grudges.
No.
So, but when I ended up leaving, it became very, very pressured, and that was another thing. I just felt as though I had no purpose in life. I would literally spend all my days at the horses, which then led on to us moving our horses onto a private farm, and I got involved with a much older gentleman there, and he became my life. I just absorbed everything.
You mean a partner?
Yeah. I think he was about 15 years older than me. I was still relatively young, but I just latched onto this person. I just needed something to keep me going. And I have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and an attachment disorder. And anybody who's got an attachment disorder, you'll understand this. My purpose was unknown. I didn't know, but I was trying to seek out a purpose, and it came in the form of a relationship. Unfortunately, this chap was much older, but still had very close connections with his mum. Mum and him and his dad still lived on the same farm, and I was much more independent than that, and I was engrossed in their family life, and it wasn't particularly to my liking. It was quite suffocating and drowning. So
how old were you then?
I was 17, and I'm sure he was about 29. Maybe a bit. No, I think he was older. No, I think he was about 34 actually.
Quite a big age gap at that. Yeah. Is it not?
Yeah, it was massive.
Family upset at that?
No. They just let me be.
Okay.
I always had an older head on me. Always had a more mature head on my shoulders, and they thought it was quite unusual, but we matched. You know, we laughed, and I think they were just excited that throughout my teenage years, there were times when I had expressed to my parents that I wanted to die, that I felt suicidal, that I didn't understand these dark feelings. I wouldn't come out of my room for days. I wouldn't speak to people. I had lots of strange occurrences and misunderstandings of what I was feeling when I was a teenager.
At what point did you get in front of a doctor, or, you know? Quite
a few times. Mum put me in front of a doctor when
GP?
I was... Yeah,
Family GP?
Yeah. in around about the age of 11, 12, and they brushed it off and said it's just hormones.
Do you think that's the time they have? 5 minutes to...
I do, but actually I think I'm 33 now, so it's, 20 odd years ago. I don't think they had the understanding of what they do today, and I still think there's a long way to go.
Definitely.
Yeah. Brushed off hormones. She'll grow out of it, which is something that I desperately wanted to do and was hoping for. Again, I think I was about 15, put me in front of a GP. Just hormones, just situational, just what's happened between the family, the breakup, the communication. Oh, really? Yeah. Even though I'd tried to attempt to take my own life and never self-harmed physically then, but I would drink stupidly amounts and end up spewing up because I couldn't cope. Have you ever remembered having that one drink, that first one drink?
Me never.
Mine was vodka and Red Bull. Oh, no, vodka and Iron Brew. I can't touch either of them still to this day. Plenty of them.
So, when you tried to take your own life, how old were you and how did you try and do that?
The first time I can really remember trying to take my own life was I'd passed my driving test and I was in this relationship and we'd broken up. And I was a mess. When we'd broken up, I basically felt as though my life was over. I was not worth living. I couldn't function as an individual. I needed to be with somebody to be whole. And I tried to drive my car into a wall. I had a little 1.1 Fiesta, first car, and I attempted to drive it into a wall. I literally slammed the brakes on at the very last moment, but I was going at speed and it was at a pub that was either in service or it was never. It was an unfunctionable pub. So at this time it was derelict. It was empty, and I just remember heading for it. And I was coming down a hill and I skidded along and just thought, "What are you doing?" And at that point, I reached out to my mum and I said, "I want to die." And I closed down, I couldn't speak. And I remember being taken to her house and my little sister on the landing saying, "Mum, does Aimee want to die, or is she going to die?" Something along them words.
Did you tell your sister that, or did she
overheard.
Oh, shoot.
She'd overheard the conversation that my mum was sort of bringing me back over the phone, and it was really a point that later on in my life, it was like a light bulb had gone off in my brain, and I thought, I can't put people through this anymore, as well as putting myself through it. But she took me to what's called the Brooker Centre, which is a psychiatric unit. People get sectioned there. And it was sad because I technically lived in a different area, although we were like 10-15 minutes away, that the borough didn't cover where I lived unless I could have registered at my mum's house, which wouldn't have been within the time frame of service they could have treated me. So they had to send me on my way. Wouldn't talk, couldn't stop crying, really unstable in the way I felt. Tried to commit suicide. Another way that I've tried to commit suicide is take as many tablets as I possibly can. Literally poured them all out in front of me and just looked at them, and it'd be a combination of paracetamol, mainly my antidepressants as well.
When were you put on antidepressants?
I think the first time I was put on antidepressants was around the age of 16, but I never took them because I did very briefly, but I always know that they've made me feel really quite ill.
Did you save them?
Yeah. Well,
Did people think you were taking them?
Some of the times, yeah. I think some people thought I was taking them. But that was something that I was also very good at. I was very secretive. I was almost like preying on my own life. It was really strange. Really strange. Can't really explain that one, but very secretive, very behind the door. But almost like the class clown. And I think a lot of people who suffer with mental health will go out and make others laugh because it's a bravado and a mask that we wear. And I think that's to protect ourselves.
So you're very young to be trying to take your own life.
Yeah.
People say you're attention seeking again.
Oh, yeah.
That is...
And I got that from family members as well.
did you? Close?
Yeah, very
Immediate
close.
family?
Immediate family, yeah. Yeah, got that
And
from...
how do you deal with that? Are people not understanding yet that, you know, you said from age of 11, which is, you know, if I think back when I was 11, you know, you're just getting on, out with mates, out and about, doing what you know.
And that was strange because I was a dead active kid as well. I used to be outside all the time. I was never one for like sitting on a computer console and, you know, it just wasn't in that era. I was always outside. But yeah, no, I would, I still don't speak to certain family members. You know, I'll keep the peace with them and whatnot. But it's been a long time in the making for me to get to the stage where I'm actually like, I don't need your approval anymore. And this is immediate.
So is that self-worth, that?
Yeah. Oh, that my self-loathing is top notch. I could win the gold in that. My self-hating, my negativity, everything about me it's strange because people say the total polar opposite to how I feel about myself.
Explain that a little bit.
So I know that I'm bubbly, fun-loving, empathetic, will do anything for anybody if I possibly can. I always go the extra mile, which has been proven in my places of work. And but I don't see my self-worth. I'm starting to now, but I don't see the bubbly side of me. I think I'm a pain in the arse. I think I'm just this burden in life. And yeah, really tough. I criticise myself all day long, and I'm so good at doing that when it comes to like positive reinforcement, it's dead difficult. And I think that pretty much everybody can be in that position. To be positive about yourself can be difficult, or you're classed as being big-headed.
Well, this is it, isn't it? If you get on with people, you get on with people. If you've got empathy or whatever. Sad state of affairs. So I'm struggling a bit with the medication so young.
Yeah.
You know, why? If I was a GP, I'm just thinking, if I've got a 16-year-old in front of me and I'm giving them antidepressants, you know, what I know they don't get no time, but, you know, you need to be looking, why is a 16-year-old?
Yeah.
So, the medication, when you started saving it up, how old were you then?
From 16. Yeah. And, you know, it's nothing to worry about now, but I still do it. I still have medication in my house and what stops me from doing it now, as much as what I used to do, is the fact that I have to pay for my prescriptions. So if they were free, I'd just go and pick them up.
That'd scare people, that. So is that like a comfort blanket, having the medication?
Yeah.
Because I do know people who have to go and get a prescription daily because they, you know, they've tried to take their own life so many times.
Yeah. Or blister packs weekly and things like that. Yeah. But
technically, if you went every day, you could still keep meds from. There's no, if you're gonna do it, there's no way that anyone's gonna stop you taking meds, is there?
And one of the things, let's have it right as well, Sam, is one of the symptoms of suicide before it happens is you can become elated.
Stop that a second, I'll shut it. That bit of fresh air.
You can become calm.
Or you come up.
You go all the way up.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
You get your state of affairs. You get yourself looking, your presentation looking well.
Yep.
And people think, right, great, they're okay. Bang, they're not.
It happens in prison, sadly, that, love. You know, you drop your guard, people lift, and then away they go. So
remember that story, because I'll touch on that in a minute. So, carried on, split up from this relationship, and I really, really hated dental nursing, and my major passion was flying birds of prey. Well, was not flying them, actually. That was like a want. And but I found a local falconry centre and got into the falconry centre as a volunteer. Ended up learning how to fly, how to train, how to make equipment for birds of prey. Did demonstrations. It is an amazing position for me to be in because it gave me confidence. It put me in front of the biggest crowd I was ever put in front of was possibly around 10,000 people.
Jesus.
At a race course when I'd gone to help out their partner in practice up in Scotland. I'd gone up there for a couple of weeks to support them. I remember stood there with this falcon going, shit. If I don't do anything, I'm going to look like a complete tit. So thankfully, the head falconer, he did all of the talking, and I just brought the bird on and did what I had to do, released it, and off we went. But it was amazing. It gave me so much confidence. And I remember somebody saying to me, a year in this job, the world will be your oyster. And it was. It really, really was. And again, only appreciating that now at this stage of life. From back then, it was like, you're talking bollocks. But I can recognise that it did me really well, served me well. Split up with that guy. We'd gone, the one who had attempted to take my own life with, who had the farm. We got back and forth in a relationship, eventually split up. And then ended up forming a relationship with somebody even older than that. So I was probably around the age of 20, and he was probably around the age of 40, maybe a bit older. I think it's probably about 45, to the point where he was older than my own dad. That was interesting. He had children who were older than me, but he said to me, and we're still good friends, that I saved his life. Unfortunately, his wife had passed from a huge, long battle with cancer. And it was really sad. And I never got to meet her, but from what I heard of her and what she'd done for the Falconry Centre, had that empathy to sort of relate to this lady, and almost, and still do admire this woman to pieces. But yeah, that was a real, like, why am I doing this? I don't understand. But
can you try and explain the attachment thing a little bit better?
Attachment disorder really is, it's they say it's from trauma. It can come from childhood. But when you say trauma, people might go, oh, well, I wasn't abused, or I wasn't this, I wasn't that. But it can come from bullying from school. It could come from the fact that your parents have split up. It can be anything that's triggered.
Is a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is a part of an attachment disorder, is abandonment, is how you feel. And you feel as though you're not a whole person. And in order for you to feel complete, you need to attach yourself to somebody else. But also with my borderline personality disorder, I'd like to press the fuck it button and self-destruct button, which would mean I don't deserve any of this, get away from me. I'd push them to the point where they wouldn't want to come back to me, and we wouldn't ever, either friendships or relationships. And then I'd be like, I need to kill myself, I can't cope with this. My emotions and my state of affairs, my head was an absolute mess, because I'm like, why have I done that? Why have I pushed them away? Because I don't feel that I'm worthy. I don't feel that I'm deserving. But then when I finally done it, the pain, it's like self-punishment. So it is horrible to have an attachment disorder and borderline personality disorder at times.
But you're still living a life.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's not completely controlling your life, because you worked,
you
went away young, you worked, you've never not really worked, have you?
No, always worked, yeah.
So people get understanding of this, and the word functioning comes out a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. High functioning BPD and attachment disorder, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I look back now and I talk about work in a minute, you will understand that work was my purpose. It was my sole focus in life.
But listen, for me, that word purpose is massive.
Yeah.
You know, when people, you know, they need purpose in prison, we don't get it. They need purpose wherever they are.
Yeah.
You know, our lass works with dementia or whatever. They try and do what they can with people, try and do it with kids. When people come out of prison, addicts, you know.
Yeah.
Ex-alcoholics or recovering alcoholics, whatever you want to, everyone needs some purpose.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got that, it don't matter that, you know, I see it with people, when you say normal people is quite a strange word now, isn't it?
Very, yeah.
But I see it with my friends, you know, who've lost their jobs, who've been furloughed. The fact they're getting money and they can still pay their bills and put, you know, they're all going bananas.
Yeah, because there's no purpose.
No.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, you know, people who have got lots and lots of money, and whether they're celebrity status, all of a sudden, if they're dropped from something, they will have money to sustain, but they have no purpose.
It's very interesting that you mentioned celebrities, yeah, because it is a thing now. So we're talking about mental health. So somebody who's struggling and hasn't got a lot, or you've got a celebrity in the mansion, because it has come out, you know, on YouTube, putting a video out, I'm so lonely, I'm not coping. They're going to get ridiculed, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Attention seeking or whatever.
What have you got to be depressed
Now,
about?
yeah, well, some of it might be, but then if you look at celebrities or A-listers or B-listers or whatever they are, the amount that take their own lives, you know, rock stars.
Massive.
Rock star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you mean.
Bam. So...
Sad, isn't it? Really sad.
It's how we look at everything, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's, you just ridicule people.
Yeah. Judgment.
Yeah.
Judgmental.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they're all dressed in the same clothes, 100 people,
Yeah.
and they discuss their own mental health,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't be judging, would you? You'd be looking at them as individuals. Whereas if Geezer there is in a mansion that's worth 10 million, and this one here is living on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's what have you got to be depressed about? Really, really, yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah. So, big one, when me and this gentleman decided to part ways, he took that decision into his own hands because he knew he couldn't have children. I was still young. I needed to live a life. And so we ended, and I then became a mess. I wouldn't eat. I'd left the Falconry Centre, I'd gone back in to complete my qualifications as a dental nurse, worked in a private practice. When I was going in for my dinner, I was given like made up food for my dinner. I was giving my dinner away to the dentists. And I think it was Gingster's Cornish pasties that I would pick up and just buy one from the shop and go, right, I can heat that up, I might be able to eat it, and I'd give it away. And I very quickly went from a size, say 10, going to like near a size 6 because I just literally starved myself. Not through punishment, but because I couldn't eat. I was so depressed. I was so low. I wanted to die again. I remember going out into the wilderness, wouldn't answer my phone. I was in my car driving around, and to the point where they actually phoned the police, and the police put me on house arrest and said, if you...
Who did that?
It was the older gentleman who...
you split up with him?
Yeah, they were so concerned for my safety. So yeah, I was put on house arrest, and they said, if you leave this house and we find that you have been reported again, you will go and be locked up in a unit. Okay.
There is a civil section or something where they can do that, isn't there?
Yeah. And in a way, I wish I'd done it because I probably would have got the help a lot quicker. But hey ho. So, birthday's around the corner. Got my sister, couple of friends, went and hit the town. Not the best place, but it was a laugh. In there, dancing away, my sister got extremely drunk, as we do, and she pulled my top down, and I had a strapless top on. And as you can imagine, everything was on show. And that was how I met my eldest daughter's dad. You got an eyeful, didn't you? So, ended up having a conversation, passed telephone numbers, went on a date to Delamere Forest, which is around the corner, and then didn't speak to him again for about 7 months. Coming up to Christmas, this was. Contacted him, really lonely again. Lovely lad, but in the end, he was a bit younger, didn't see eye to eye, very immature at the time, fell pregnant very quickly, split up during my pregnancy, back and forth arguments as you do. I think I was around 22 when I was pregnant with Lucy. Come to the very end, about 6 weeks before I was due to give birth, we tried again. We got ourselves a flat, and it just didn't work. We just fizzled out. We did have a difficult time when we separated. We argued. There was quite it was nasty, but again, it wasn't supposed to be that way. I think hormones and emotions were just exceeding, and that was that. So he's an amazing dad. He, you know, got a loving wife to be. They've got 2 children, fantastic, with Lucy. Brilliant. It's just the way it's turned out was meant to be, and it's amazing. And families that do break up, you can become the best of friends. It really can happen. After that, I became again really depressed. I had postnatal depression, didn't even recognise that I'd had postnatal depression. As soon as Lucy was born, I looked at her and I went, oh shit, what have I done? When they say, when you give birth and you hold that child, that motherly instinct will kick in. Well, it doesn't. Not all the time, I can assure you.
People are not going to understand that either, are they?
No. I hated being pregnant. I hated it for the simple fact that it kicked off anxiety. I didn't appreciate and enjoy the feeling of a child, although it was a double-ended sword there, because I knew that she was alive and she was safe because she was moving. But when she was moving, it was like, oh my God, get this child out of me. It created panic, and I just was,
really?
Yeah, it was horrendous. And I can feel it now. It really makes my skin crawl. And when she was born, easy birth. It was 8 hours, thankfully, for my first. Didn't have to have a lot of painkillers. Loved taking laughing gas. Literally was the most, they said I was the most in pain person in labour who was a comedian. We're going this way, that way, forwards and backwards while sucking up the gas. But yeah, I looked at her and I was like, what the fuck have I done? And you would think, well, is that the come down from the drugs that you've taken? And it wasn't. It was shock. It was like, oh shit, I don't know how to be a mum. And there's no manual that pops out at the same time. So sometimes you're on your own with that one.
Can I ask you something that struck me? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you think, right, you know you were saying about the bubbly person?
Yeah.
That, I know it's a bizarre question, but that you may well have been a bubbly person, the personality disorder, the attachment disorder, that the person you would have been without them, you are, but you've got them. So like you're saying people see as the bubbly person of that, well, that's what I see, even though.
Yeah. So
perhaps you are a bubbly person.
Yeah.
You're not acting bubbly. You can't act all your life like that. You know, when I spoke to you on the phone, you're quite loud and that, and swore quite a lot. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you could be a normal sort of person, and then you've got that other side. Yeah. So it's not that people see that, but you're this.
Yeah.
It's 2 sides of you.
It's hard, isn't it? Because people wouldn't see that side of me unless I was like...
Unless they're around you a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Like sat in my car today, I'm not going to... Well, hopefully you're not going to do anything... Hopefully you're not going to do anything stupid. I've got some hand gel.
That'll do, we'll drink that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't, would I?
No. And it's really tough because I'm now accepting myself for who I am, and I enjoy that. And I'll explain that when I left a position of work and somebody was very close, my partner basically, where he works, they would ask about me, and they would say she was a fantastic person, she's really bubbly, we really miss her. And he'd come home and I would cry and say, why are you telling me this? This is like, you're torturing me, because I don't understand why people would say that of me and would ask after me. And again, that's my internal self-worth and my voice going, oh, you're shit, you're this, you're that, you're the other, bringing me right back down to the ground. And I used to say, you can't talk to me anymore about that place or the people within it, because I'm not ready to handle it. I'm not ready to listen to it. And, you know, but if anybody asks, you can just say, oh, we've spoken about it. Aimee says hello and she wishes you well. Which would be a normal response to what I would normally say to somebody else.
Yeah, because it was. If someone's saying nice things about you or whatever.
And I just cringed and I'd just be like, stop. Barriers go up, shield myself, get away. Don't want to know. Don't want to talk about it.
Is that getting better older you get?
Absolutely. Now it is. Yeah. Yeah, so like work really was a massive focus. After having Lucy, I went back to volunteer with the Falconry Centre, where I met my now, thank God, ex-husband. But at the time, I did that whole latching on again. Oh, somebody's showing me interest. This person could be my life. I could save this person. This person could save me. And within 6 months, after having Lucy, I was pregnant again with my youngest. Not planned, totally out of the blue. But a close family member accused me of doing it on purpose so that I didn't steal that they didn't steal my thunder, and they'd accuse me of being dramatic and selfish and left, right and centre. And I just want to state very clearly that I didn't know I was pregnant, and my horse was put to sleep on New Year's Day. And when that happened, it was such a shock that I absolutely hit the bottle so hard, I drank probably 1.5 litres of vodka. The next morning, I was a mess, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? And you know, if I'd have known I was pregnant, I'd have never done that. And I am so lucky that Ella held on, and she is who she is today. So, you know, she's amazing. Yeah, she's just a little shit. Amazing, but a little shit. So parents will get that. But yeah, she held on, and it was only later. So I'd fallen pregnant in the December, and it was around the February time that I'd realised. I think coming up to the weeks before I tested, I knew, because I could feel after having a child very recently the signs, but I ignored it because I was fucking shitting myself for, oh my God, I've got to go through labour again and this, that and the other. And a friend sat with me and said, you're pregnant. Do me a favour, take a test and let me read it to you. And I was like, okay, I just amused about it. Did it, and she said, what are you going to do if you are? And she said, my face just went white from the head down. And I said, well, what can I do? Just got to keep going with the flow.
That's 2 kids.
Yeah. But only when Ella was born had I realised that I was suffering with postnatal depression with Lucy. When Ella was born, 6 to 8 weeks later, I think, I got married to her dad, who was another falconer, very self-obsessed, narcissist, compulsive liar, and I mentioned he was a secret drinker in our last podcast, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I talked about a very good friend who I never knew they were a drinker till they asked me to take him to hospital one day, 10 o'clock in the morning, come out of a newsagent's, bottle of Coke, bottle of vodka, poured the Coke out, put the vodka in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? So, yeah, it's happened a few times that.
And when you say secret drinker, I have been asked, well, how do you know that they're not drinking? Wow, they hide it, don't they? That is their intents and purposes, to hide and just to drink away.
Very much so.
And to function, yeah.
Well, it's not something that they must become very good at it.
Yeah.
Like, I've been around people who were very, very good at it. You know, they're not throwing pints back when you're out like you'd expect, or putting shots in with them or anything like that. You know, they're in the background. If anything, you know, they're the strong one at the end of the night who's putting you in a taxi because you're absolutely shit-faced.
Been there a few times.
Yeah.
It was bizarre because when I look back now, he used to have the shakes, but he would say to me it's because he's addicted to caffeine, and he would cover it up by drinking your Red Bulls and things like that, your energy drinks. And vodka, yes, it does have a smell to it, but it doesn't at the same time. So either you mix it, but he didn't. And when we split up after a very difficult time, I went to the local shop and they recognised our dog. And she said, "Oh, you must be Aimee." And they talked to me about Dean in the store. I said, "He's gone, he's left." And they went, "Oh, really? We used to take the piss out of him by saying, 'Do you want a brown paper bag with that?'" "What do you mean?" Because
he's buying it every day.
And he would take the dog for a walk, he'd sit on a park bench, neck the lot, and that'd be it.
Okay, now.
Yeah. While we went through that relationship, he stole so much money from me. He stole jewellery and pawned it. He just made me... He was a very, very manipulative and very coercive and mentally abusive. But it turned quite sour. When we got married, a week before we were due to get married, we'd saved really hard to get a photographer. And it was a friend that was doing it, and all she asked was that we cover a day's wages, which was about 100 quid. And I was like, "That's incredible." I said, "Please make sure you remain as a guest and come and have a meal later." A couple of days before, "I'm sorry, I've got to cancel. I can't take that time off work unpaid and not receive payment from yourselves." "What?" He told me he'd paid them. And I knew deep down that. I knew.
Oh, but I just realised what you were saying. I thought your friend had just backed out.
Backed out. But no, he'd not paid him. But he told me and promised me. But the reason why I had an inkling behind that is because we had to move house a few times. Because he promised he'd paid the rent. Got me in shit, 3 months rent unpaid. I was on maternity leave. Ended up having to go and borrow some money, trying to sort it out. Paid it off. He did it again. So we had to move. We had to kind of do like a moonlight flirt.
So, are you quite stable because you're in a relationship? Your mental health. So even though, you know, he's drinking the chaos, he's stable because you got that attachment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a good way of putting it. Although I was unstable because of my BPD, it was almost like my heart could beat because I knew that I had somebody. So I knew I was a whole person. Even though everything that he was doing to me, it involved like destroying me, as well as doing it in front of the children in such an early age. Ended up in a mess. He got very, very drunk after a few days of intense arguing and me just saying, "Listen, just fuck off out of the house." He wouldn't go back to work. He was like falconry at that place that I was. Decided not to go back to work, staying on the sick, sat there drinking. We were financially crippled, absolutely crippled. I was on maternity mat leave. It was like 100 quid a week. If that, I've got 2 kids to try and fend for, as well as a household. And we weren't getting anywhere. So I remember kicking him out and said, "Let me enjoy being a mum to our newborn daughter and to my elder daughter on my own while you're at work and give me some headspace." Okay. Half an hour later, I get a birthday card through the door that's been crossed out, "I'm sorry," with a load of shit in there, knowing that he was absolutely hammered. Loads of shit in there. "Let me back." He comes in through the back door and I went, "Well, you just get the fuck out of my house." And off he went. Went to the pub. Few friends had spotted him in the pub. Text me. "He's slagging you off. Can't believe this is happening. You've only just got married." He absolutely ripped me to pieces. Come home. Verbally abusive. And ended up having to get him removed.
I'm going to say, were you scared for the kids?
Petrified for myself. Another incident that happened very, very quickly afterwards. He basically, I told him to get out. I didn't want any more to do with him. I was finished. He held me up by a knife point.
Ooh.
And he did it twice. He held me up once on my own. I was so scared. Let it go. And the second time, fortunately, my sister come bombing it up. My neighbour was in the house. And I said to him, just get your shit and get out, thinking he wouldn't do anything. He was upstairs, packing his bags, bin bags, throwing them down the stairs. And he come down the stairs for the second time. And I was like, is that it? Is that it? You're done? No, I'm coming for more bin bags. And I knew exactly what he did. He opened the drawer and he stood there and he was picking knives up, looking at them, smirking, putting them back, until the point that he ended up getting, I think it was like a 9-inch carving knife out the drawer. And I was already at this point on the phone to the police. They were telling me to get out. They were trying to ask me questions. I said, look, I can't answer because he's there in front of me. But we managed to get me, the dog, the kids out. My sister, she grabbed my car keys to take my car to another area so we couldn't destroy it. And we ran round the back of the house and into my neighbours so he couldn't see us. Police arrested him but couldn't charge him.
Because?
So there was insufficient evidence. So he was initially going to be charged with a fray. They said to me, will you let him back? I said, no. I said, I don't want him. And they paid for him to go and sleep in a travel lodge because his family were Wakefield and also his immediate family were in County Durham. So he was a long way from either way where we were. We'd only literally been married about a month.
Okay, now.
Yeah. His mum come down to try and heal wounds between us.
Had you done final?
I went up with them to County Durham. I spent a day there, 2 days maybe. She come back down with us. She stayed. And a week later I said, get the fuck out. I'm done. I'm totally done. He'd stolen my bank card. He'd been taking money out of my bank by cashback because it doesn't show up as transactions separately. It just shows up as one transaction in a shop.
Yeah.
So he'd been storing money that he'd been taken out of my account, and there was a huge amount of money that when he'd gone, he'd fucked off to Canada at this point. He literally took all his stuff, went to stay with his family in Wakefield, did a couple of shifts at the Falconry Centre. Next thing I know, he's over in Canada. He's got a dad over in Canada, but karma got him, which was great. But he just didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit about his daughter. He didn't give a shit about me. He didn't give a shit about anybody apart from himself and where he was going to get his next drink from and where he was going to get money from to function.
In that, generally alcoholics.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, it's not fair to generalise. I know a lot
But he didn't.
But at the time, that there's no thoughts, is there?
No.
Of anyone other than sort of your next fix or whatever.
I can't remember how I found out he was in Canada. But during that time period that he was there, our daughter was so poorly that she was rushed into hospital with pneumonia. And I remember contacting his dad and I said, I need to speak to your son. Your granddaughter's in hospital, your daughter's in hospital. And it was a shitty day. It was chucking it down. I come away from the hospital and he turned around and said to me, well, what do you want me to do about it? And I was like, this is your daughter. What the hell goes on in your head? I don't know. I fell into a deep, dark, depressed mode again. And it was like, I don't know what to do. Prior to us splitting up, I was on mat leave and I knew we couldn't cope financially anymore. So I cut my mat leave short and I got another job. So I was at that point, I'd qualified as a dental nurse.
Yep.
And then I was lucky there was a local dentistry who was also an implantologist were recruiting and I got the job. So it meant like quite a big boost up.
How old are kids?
4 months and 16, 17 months old.
And you're back to work?
Mm-hmm. Back to work.
Because,
yeah.
You had the foresight to see that.
Yeah. So first day I started work, when I got back that evening, he'd drank 12 cans of lager and a bottle of champagne from our wedding. My daughter's trousers were on back to front. And I noticed because she had pockets that had buttons all over it and the buttons were the wrong way around. And I was like, what on earth? And that was it. I saw red. Get out. Go. Gone. But I still continued to work Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. I had Tuesdays and Thursdays off. And bless my mum, she would come to mine, sleep at my house on a Tuesday, to have Ella downstairs with her, so I could at least get a decent night's sleep for
Were you working like full time?
Yeah. And I was, so implantologist nurse I was. Implants, I don't know whether anyone's come across, you probably will have done now, but lots of people at the time were having implants in the mouth where they'd had a tooth missing, and so it was actually, you needed sterile conditions and it was theatre conditions as well. So it was really technical, and I was surviving off Pro Plus and Red Bull. And I remember...
Tell people what Pro Plus are if they don't know.
Yeah, Pro Plus, it's a caffeine, caffeine boost. So it's like, it carries you, but caffeine is false. It's a false energy, and you dip and drop straight after it's come out your system. And I was finding that I needed to take more and more Pro Plus, and I was taking more than what I should have been, the recommended. I think it's 2 a day they say you can take. I was on 4, 5, 6. I was just popping them because I was so exhausted. And then necking the big cans of Red Bull while walking down, dropping the kids off at nursery and walking down to where I worked. And I remember being in theatre, and I was like this with my hands. And I was thinking, I can't keep steady while I aspirate or do whatever I need to do in the mouth with the dentist. And that was like a turning point. And that's when I started to notice I can't cope. My dad said to me, you need to move house because you're in the marital coffin. So we moved house. I had all this false energy where I was trying to make this new house look beautiful, feel homely, continue to work, thinking that I'm this high functioning mom. You know, I'm really, really confident.
Sounds like you are to me.
I was killing myself inside. And in the end, I said to work, I can't sustain this life anymore. Petrified, but they made me, they discharged me medically. So I wasn't sacked, I was discharged medically. And I thought, shit, what am I going to do for money? I was a really well-paid dental nurse. I was really good at the job. And I just, in the end, again, it was all that purposeful. Although I'm a mum, don't have a job, don't have money coming in. Yes, there was benefits there to support me, didn't know a great deal about them. And that's when I decided that my kids deserve a much better life without me in it. They'll be cared for, they'll get everything they possibly could ever want. And I remember sitting in my living room, rocking back and forth, and I just wanted to die. I had all my medication in front of me. And if it hadn't been for a friend who randomly turned up, I'd probably would have done something really quite desperate at that time. She had no choice but to contact social services. And social services had to get involved then. Again, I was absolutely petrified. Because
they were going to take your kids.
They were going to take my kids, even though I didn't want to be on the planet anymore. I didn't want to be living. It was because I thought my children would be far better off without me.
People won't understand that, will
they? No. But knowing that I was living and my children had been taken off me, there would have been no question. At that moment, I was not strong enough. I'd have killed myself. If they'd have gone, I'd have gone. So, social services, like in any job, you will get the amazing, compassionate ones with passion who want to drive you to get better, who want to support you and your children remain in the home. You get the ones that have just come from university and think they're a bit of a know-it-all and they're not even parents themselves. And then you get the ones that just do it for the money, who don't give a shit. And I understand that people will be very nervous, parents will be nervous, and grandparents of social services getting involved. But thank God they got involved in my life. I owe them everything. They really supported me. They put me in touch with the Children's Centre.
There you go.
And they were the ones that carried me through. Because I wasn't working, it meant that Lucy was entitled to free school places, not school, but nursery. But she had to be 2 years of age. And she wasn't until the May. So I couldn't cope being a single mum on my own. I didn't know what to do with them. I wasn't a natural maternal mum. But people will say differently because I lived a very different life through social media. We were always at the park. We were always doing something. But for me, I didn't enjoy it. It was just about survival.
Well, you're doing that thing again where you're splitting it up.
Yeah,
So perhaps you were a really good mum because you're at the park.
Yeah.
What, did you turn up, take the picture and then run back home? No. Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
So you're doing the mum's bit.
Yeah.
It's you having a downer on yourself again.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I just never felt... I never enjoyed being a mum to young children because I didn't have the support. I've got some cracking... Of? Support of others around me who could pick me up, take them away, give me some me time. But even when people did give me the me time, like the parents when they were still working, but they would try their hardest to have a life-work balance where they would then enjoy their own lives, then be grandparents, and then they would be at work.
What would you say to people? Because, some people, because they always do this, will say, if you're not prepared to look after them or whatever, then don't have the kids, won't they?
Yeah.
Because they always...
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because
I think bringing up kids is harder than people think.
Oh, it is so hard because I will forever love my children every single day. And as they have got older, our relationship has got so much stronger. And I understand, I see my path, and I will never always get it right. But I just couldn't understand little people. They were like, fuck, I don't know what to do to entertain you. I have no idea. But fortunately, a nursery that Lucy went to, because when Dean left, so did his family. They had nothing to do with Ella. I fought for Dean to be involved in Ella's life. He then decided to make the point of, I'm not interested. Never had a penny off him for her. And Ella says to me, I don't need my dad, mum, because I've got you. But the thing is, when you get these organisations like Fathers Together, Fathers Unite, I think it's incredible. But what they've also got to understand is that there are two sides to every story. And just because he isn't interested in his daughter doesn't mean I stopped him from seeing her.
No, which is a very good point.
Yeah. I wanted them to have that relationship.
How old was your daughter when she said that she don't need a dad?
She was about 7.
See, for me, a dad is somebody who's there.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, whoever that person is,
Yeah.
if someone's there, caring for a kid, you know, looking after that kid, dad, mum, whatever label you put on them, they're the people who are important.
Yeah.
So if somebody don't want anything to do with them,
Yeah.
for me, you know.
He's a sperm donor, and if you ever watched it, you are a sperm donor, and I don't need you.
Scouse accent come out
Sorry,
there.
I know. That's the defence, isn't it? Yeah, you're a fucking sperm donor.
Oh, God.
So that was... It's tough, really, really hard, but some incredible things come of the Children's Centre. I ended up going to classes which they put on maths, English.
Social services.
Social services and the Children's Centre had worked together to put these classes on, free education, but there was a creche. And even though I didn't need these qualifications, I went to socialise and for my children to socialise with others.
How important do you think socialising is to mental health?
It's everything, especially now that we've gone through the pandemic and lockdown's proven that if you don't have social interaction...
People don't want to with mental health quite often. But it is massively important.
It's a save. It's a saver. It really can make a difference to somebody's feelings by just having a smile on your face, a hello, how are you doing today?
Text, phone call.
Yeah, everything. And I got so good at doing these classes, and you know, became I when I go to a place, I just naturally socially butterfly all the way around, and I'm like, hi, I'm Aimee. And
Because you're bubbly.
yeah. So I do. I'm on like a natural flow, and it was great because they ended up asking me to run a sort of kind of mums and tots group for those people that have attended our courses that we'd been on, and they'd come to an end, to remain some routine and to give some stability and some purpose to those people that had been in the group, which we did. And then it hit us hard because being a single parent, having been medically discharged from work, I was classed by the government as a troubled family.
I've known, you know, well,
I know. I was like, what? So, okay.
Can you give me a little timeline just so we know where we are? About?
I was 24 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Troubled family.
But again, people looking,
Yeah.
it's a benefit mum, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was. I was a scrounger. I was I was worthless. I was lazy. I didn't have any motivation. That's what I got targeted at.
Were you medicated at this time?
I was, yes. I was on, I think it was sertraline. So, but again, I might take it. I might not. I was terrible with it.
It don't work like that, does it, as we know?
I did end up having a few runs with sertraline and fluoxetine, and I would take them for a few months, but I didn't like the side effects. And this was prior to my diagnosis as well. So I didn't know my diagnosis until I was around the age of 28. Which again, it was amazing to be diagnosed. It did change my life at that time, but I'm on another path again.
Was it like a relief?
Absolutely. To get a diagnosis, I was able to look into it. It took me a while to look into it, because when you get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, when people say borderline, you automatically think, well, borderline to what?
But you're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, does that mean you're not cuckoo yet? But you're on. No, but you are. What a name, borderline personality disorder. What a name. You're on your way to being a proper personality disorder, but
you're not quite there yet.
Yeah, but this is important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people who don't know, 12 months ago, I had no idea. Holly, boom, people are coming out, people are telling me. And then you're seeing people who might never have been in front of a GP, might never been medicated, who I'm looking and thinking, fucking hell.
Yeah.
You know, which is scary shit.
It's funny because they thought I was bipolar before that. The GP had thrown it around a bit. I'd also seen a psychiatrist as well. I can't quite remember. It's so fuzzy in my head, but it was sort of early teens, and I think it was possibly from social services that I ended up having it was ropey, but they managed to get me there, some support through the mental health services, because I remember saying to them, I am in pain to even breathe because of my emotional state. And I remember saying that to the nurse. I am in pain breathing and I just don't want to breathe anymore. So I went from like a psychiatric nurse, referred up to a psychiatrist, and they reckoned that I was bipolar, but normally it wouldn't be diagnosed until your later 20s. So they weren't going to officially label me with a diagnosis, even though the medication at the time, it could have had an effect on me positively, but they didn't want to take that chance, which is I appreciate, because lithium can have a negative effect on your kidneys, so they didn't want to do.
Lithium, what they give alcoholics as well?
Librium's what they give.
Librium,
sorry, yeah. That's what I had to think then. Lithium and Librium, yeah. So they again continued me on sertraline. It was.
Can we talk about sertraline and weight gain?
Oh yeah, man. That was probably one of the reasons why I didn't want to take the medication, because a lot of side effects of medication is weight gain, very foggy brain. It can also make you feel even worse and more suicidal than what you already are for a brief period of time. And I think that's because, and don't quote me medical people, but I think it's because it resets the brain to then get it prepared to increase your endorphins, which will then put you on a level of, normality, if you like, or that's what gives you the elation or the sadness.
You're quite an intelligent lass and all that, even though you didn't get your GCSEs. while we're talking about sertraline and things like that, you know, a lot of people need immediate help and stuff, the weight gain and everything. In reality, sunshine, healthy eating, some exercise, but that's not where people are, is it?
What's so sad is when the doctor said to me, take this medication, you may feel worse, and it isn't going to be an instant quick fix. You've got 6 weeks, and come back and see me. Why isn't at that point there a community worker who can come and support you in the home, who can come and not force you but encourage you to go for a walk, to encourage you to journal, to talk, to do art, to do something that will engage the brain to take you away from how you're feeling while your medication kicks in?
Did the doctor mention the weight gain? Because
no.
I'm sorry to take you back again, because it is a massive issue, isn't it, for a lot of people.
Sertraline, fluoxetine, mirtazapine are 3 medications that I've been on. Not once was I told about weight gain. Only when I finally went to see my psychiatrist at the age of 28, they said to me that that's where you've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and attachment disorder, which was literally diagnosed in 20 minutes. And they said, right, I was on sertraline at the time, no, citalopram, sorry, at the time. And they then said, to get you from citalopram to venlafaxine, which is an old school drug, we're going to give you quetiapine, which is an antipsychosis drug.
Yeah, antipsychotic now for your not quite personality.
Yeah, because I'm borderline. That's when the psychiatrist said to me, she didn't tell me venlafaxine, even when now I've read it and it says there is signs and symptoms of weight gain. She said the quetiapine will be the one that'll do it to you.
Anything with a peen is going to make you put weight on, isn't it? Your olanzapines, your old school. But how, to you now, on reflection, how much of an issue is that?
Massive. I remember being...
Does that not make you depressed in itself, or...?
It is a vicious circle that you're put in. So you're being told that you've got 6 weeks for it to take an effect. You've been told that there isn't a quick fix for it. Then you're being given a medication. Then they're telling that you need to start eating healthily. Well, how do you know what I'm eating if I might be eating healthily already? I'm not particularly overweight. Or, you know, I ended up struggling a little bit throughout my teenage years, going into my 20s, but I leveled out, I evened out. I think when I starved myself, like unintentionally, it was just how I was feeling, my body, if I ever tried to starve myself again, it compiles weight because it goes into starvation mode.
Some of those drugs, you could take 500 calories a day, you're going to put weight on.
Oh man, it was horrendous. Within 2 years of being on that medication, I'd gone from probably size 16, it was a 14, 16 to a 20. And there were times when I still struggle today. I'm starting to lose weight again, but I couldn't look in the mirror. I didn't want to take a photograph. There are lots and lots over the last couple of years of pictures of my family life without me in it, or it'll just be my head, or it'll be in an awkward position. Are
you still taking meds now?
No.
How long have you been med free?
About 3 months.
About 3 months, not.
And I've started to lose weight, really quite nicely as well. Because I'm not doing it. I'm not purposefully losing weight. I'm not dieting.
Do you think the meds are actually doing anything? Because
They're a placebo.
I've got a very good friend whose daughter has been on SSRIs, antidepressants, for 10 years, since she was 16.
I was on about 15 years of medication on and off. I took venlafaxine religiously, and the reason why I took venlafaxine religiously was because...
Who's that young lady?
It's okay. Andy's going to welcome her.
Okay. Can I, you know, on the subject of medication, right, I'm not advocating anyone not to take medication. You know, I'm just saying that, you know, for me, putting a 16-year-old on for 10 years or whatever...
Wrong.
You know, it's about changing lifestyle and thing, isn't it? It's not just banging them out. Again, I know GPs get 5 minutes with people. Some people want those meds, don't they?
Yeah.
They're not prepared to come off them. It's a crutch.
It was quite sad because the venlafaxine, if I'd stopped taking them, I was really poorly. I would withdraw from them.
Do you have to titrate off
You
them?
have to titrate. And when I went on to venlafaxine, I was on a massive whopping dose. They put me on 3 times a day, 75 milligrams. So it was, I think, shit with maths. Is it 220, something like that? Yeah.
225, yeah.
225, yeah. 225. I was on that, and I was on 75 milligrams of quetiapine. So they come in 25 milligram capsules,
Yeah.
and you can get, I think it's 35 milligrams of venlafaxine, but they put me on 75 straight away. So I was on 6 tablets a day. 6 tablets a day. I was absolutely spaced out, didn't know myself. For about 4 months, I remained monotone.
You're right, for a
yeah,
while,
absolutely. I couldn't feel an emotion. I was numb. I was really confused, lost, but I was stable. I wasn't gonna go and kill myself.
Right, okay. So, you know, that's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah. But I was so lost because I was like, I don't find enjoyment out of things anymore.
How did you manage with the kids when you're at this sort of...
It was like survival. It was just like routine. Actually, it was like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You just get up, breakfast, school.
Do you think the kids noticed? Or was you like your mum around? Was your dad around sometimes?
Sometimes they were, but I also worked. I still continued to work.
So functioning still?
Yeah, still functioning. Although I felt sick, I was tired. I'd had some times off in between during jobs. So in my working career, when I walked away from the dental nursing, I went into, from the community aspect and volunteering, I then knew I wanted to work with people. So I went into credit unions, which are local establishments that can organise people to lend safely and to save a lot much more affordably and easily, and I also had to educate people.
Easily? Is that a word?
No, I've made it easily.
So basically, is it helping people manage their finances?
People, yeah. But while I was in that position, I was talking to people who were struggling with housing debts, and I was taking it upon myself to go and work out where they would get the best support from. And I still got friends to this day who I supported back then, which is great. So moved on from there, worked as a tenancy support officer over in Chester City Centre. Fantastic job.
What's that involved?
Tenancy support officer was massive. Initially, if you were struggling with your house, to keep a roof over your head, whether that be rent, repossession, that you need to move because you're having issues with neighbours, you need to move because you need a bigger or smaller home because of your children, and just the variety of criteria was huge. And I was more than just a tenancy support worker. I went the extra mile, I enjoyed it. But the reason why I think I went the extra mile was because I knew that I couldn't say no, and it also soothed my soul.
Helping people is the best therapy.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
So, are you stable now? Is it, you know, helping people? Because the other thing about helping people is that quite often you can end up taking stuff on board.
Yeah.
You know, caring for people and things like that can actually weigh quite heavy. That's without any sort of mental health or issues going on.
So I took it on. I'd spend all hours that I possibly could at work, still being a single parent to 2 children. I did end up in another relationship which was extremely abusive, physically violent. The kids were witness to that. They were younger, I would be pinned up, spat in my face. They were very jealous of the fact that I was trying to create a career for myself and to better myself, to give the children. The one thing that my attitude is, no matter how shit life can be, you can always get up, dust yourself off and carry on. And that's what I want to portray to my children, that it's okay not to be okay, but you have to then fight through it, get back up and carry on.
Was that a short-lived relationship?
It was a bit over a year. We were supposed to get married, and again, best thing was I'd gone through some domestic violence services. I'd done some courses. And while I was going through a course, I woke up and realised that I was in another relationship that was violent, after being married to somebody who was mentally violent and who had threatened my life. It was hard. I ended up moving house because he tried to burn my house down. He stole my car.
Wow.
He had my car and he was revving it in front of the house. And me and my mum were sat on my sofa and she thankfully closed my curtains, and it was like dangling the carrot in front of the donkey's face. And the police couldn't do anything because what I'd done, husband got me into a lot of debt. I'd signed my car over to this chap so that I could then go through what's called a debt relief order.
Yep.
Just so I could wipe the slate clean.
Yep.
But because my car was worth just over £1,000, I would have had to have sold that and got a car for just about £1,000, and I thought, why? It's a reliable car.
Yep.
So I signed it over. And also, they said to me, if you sign it over, we don't need to know what you've done with the money. You can say you've used that to pay for your divorce. And that's what I did. But that gave him the advantage. He had won over on me. He owned this car, said he was going to sell it for compensation for living with me. He was a really, really lovely guy, as they tend to be at the beginning, as well as women. And he was just a complete psycho. He was a prick. Used to frighten me. I ended up having to get a non-molestation order out on him. That was going through court, family law. Police couldn't do an injunction, unfortunately. Can't quite remember why, but there was a lot of technicalities, CPS, evidence. But I managed to get a non-molestation order.
Can I... You know, it's very cliched this, and I'm not doing that. I'm just...
No, you're just learning, aren't you?
People say that sort of vulnerable people attract
Absolutely.
sort of these animals.
Yeah. You are...
Is that being unfair, that?
No, not at all. Because you are... I don't know how I portrayed my vulnerability. I think I've got an inkling. We had a date. I got drunk. No excuse, but ended up sleeping with him on the first date and thought, shit, I don't want to do this. I've walked away from a relationship and marriage. I've been 12 months on my own. First time I've ever been 12 months on my own. And then I ended up getting into a relationship with this chap after about 3 months of him constantly texting me. So my response to his text messages, he then knew that he was wearing me down. The fact that I was a single parent and had my own property. He'd split up with his girlfriend, was living in a caravan park with his mum and dad, so he needed somewhere to live. That was the door, the way in, the ticket in, treat me all lovely, give me a look at what life could be like with a loving partner, and my children would benefit from having a male figure around. And so, yeah, I just broke in the end. Come on in. And because I then got a job that was changing of my career in a community centre, he knew that I wasn't going to be at home to do tea, to make sure the house was clean, to make sure the kids are being picked up from school. It was a case of, right, I've done my bit, now you need to help me push me further. So you need to play a bit more dad and take on a bit more responsibility. And that's what he hated. He did all sorts.
That male ego, that.
I think so. Because he wasn't prepared. He was older, but he wasn't prepared to have somebody outrun him and to go, well, actually, you can be the breadwinner while I just take a bit of the pressure off you so you can get your head back into the game to get into a position where you enjoy working again. He hated it. Yeah, purpose. He hated it. He lost a lot of weight. He was ripped, and he ended up like having an affairs in a car that I'd bought him. He'd pick these people up. We'd have conversations in the garden because I would offer support. He'd then take them home and be sleeping with them in the car. And I can laugh at that now, but at the time it was like, what are you doing? In that relationship also, what made me wake up was I was sick to death of coming home every Friday and having people at the house. I just didn't want a party, and this guy was a party animal. I just wanted to get my washing done, to clean down and get on top of the house, and to enjoy it with the children, ready for when I went back to work on Monday. Walked in, knowing I'd had a conversation, can we not have anybody at the house? Got in, people there, really disheartened, handed me a drink. I didn't want a drink. but I just knew it would be easier to accept it. Took it, drank it, don't remember a lot after that. In the morning, when I woke up, I felt shit. I was ropey. I went and got myself in the shower. And when I got out of the shower, all the bed sheets had been taken. The clothes that I'd worn the night before had been taken and the washing machine was on. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, God.
Sat on the bed, feeling really like, oh, shit, spaced out, don't know what's happened. And he crouched down, put his hands on my knees and said, you don't know what I did to you last night. And I was like, what? And he said, I took your knickers off and I put them back on. And I knew something had happened. I'd also experienced a few weeks prior to that him climbing on me while I was asleep and trying to have sexual activity with me while I was asleep. And when I woke up and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? He says, oh, I'm just dreaming of our wedding night. So alarm bells had already set off. Police failed me, unfortunately. Another story that I can talk to you about another time, but there was a corrupt copper involved, which had diverted the attention of the police after me phoning them to explain that I'd been assaulted, that my car had been stolen, and it had all happened in one day. So they didn't collect the evidence. And when I said to them, look, this is what he said to me, they didn't take it as plausible information to warrant an arrest for potential sexual assault or to gather evidence.
Do you think that is, if there's a lot going on in a home, that, you know, if it was just like a phone call, first time, people would turn up and take it serious, whereas if there's a lot of activity in that home, or, you know what I'm saying?
So that was the first time I'd spoken to the police, but unfortunately, there was a copper who I had dealt with about my ex-husband stealing jewellery from me. And then the following day, he had actually attended to another person in crisis on the street. And so he then started getting friendly with me. I remember him saying to me, oh, maybe we should continue this interview at another occasion. He would then come round to my house randomly. He'd then tell me that his wife and him were swingers. He really went around the vulnerability and abused his power of trust in the position.
We had a few on the healthcare at Strangeways.
Can I say his name? He got convicted?
I wouldn't.
No.
Just...
He was known as Horny Copper.
You know, let's not diss all coppers.
No, they're amazing.
You know, like the horrible thing that's happened in London. Let's not.
No.
You know, you do get people like this. I think we had 3 or 4 coppers over my 7 year on healthcare on there. 2 were in for corruption, you know, taking money, bribes or whatever. 1 was like that. He literally, he come in, he's crying, he's a copper, so obviously, you know, he's probably shitting himself being in prison. He's on healthcare. So when he actually calms down, he says to me, and he's phoned me, Missy, I says, you can't, you know, you come through reception, you can sort your phone call tomorrow.
Yeah.
He says, can you phone her? So, you know, being a good screw in that, says, okay, you know, what do you want me to say? Can you tell her I've got locked up? Sorry?
Yeah.
He had...
Not told
He'd
her.
been doing that, taking advantage of vulnerable women, carried on working. He had gone to work that day, or so she thought, gone to court and got 3 years.
Okay.
So they had a 6-month-old child. His wife, bless him, is at home with a 6-month-old child.
Not knowing a thing.
Not knowing a thing.
And you know what? Some of my really good friends are coppers. I think, you know, the world is changing, so I do not want to slate coppers. But this particular person, corruption, but it was power of abuse. It was coercive. It wasn't because he was in the wrong place or anything. It was just because he was a control freak. There was 12 of us that he ended up targeting.
Fucking hell.
I blew the whistle on a pissed up night out. He sent me loads of shit messages, and he was trying to coerce me into a relationship with him, to sleep with him and his wife for his own pleasure, before he was married. And I started to get strong at this point, and I was like, what are you trying to play at? And I remember banging on a Riot Van's window, coming out of the pub, and went, do you know such a body? Yeah. Well, he tells me him and his wife are swingers. Straight, it's obviously gone round the police station. I get a message off him, what are you doing? And I just went, do not ever contact me ever again. After I'd moved house, get a knock on the door, and it was Professional Standards. So we went down that path of investigation. So that gave me strength, realising that actually I've not allowed somebody to take advantage of me. So, yeah. Walked away from that relationship, from that abusive relationship, and continued. We moved house, best thing ever, loveliest house I've lived in for 6 years. Difficult times there. I knew that I wasn't able to get into another relationship. I knew that if I'd continued with the relationship, my children would have been taken off me. There would have been implications. Because of the violent behaviour and atmosphere in the home, my daughter stuttered, my youngest daughter. She was only possibly around the age of 2. Really, really difficult times. But I started to grow and realise that life was going to get better. So continued with my job in support, ended up going over to the homeless service, which then led me into drug and alcohol recovery in the housing community sector over in Crewe, Cheshire East. Fantastic times there. But that's when I was really exposed to drugs, alcohol, the effects of what it can do. I'd see wet brain. I understand what that is now.
You mean you saw that?
I saw it, yeah.
You weren't.
I was working in it, yeah. So I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
I watched it. I remember doing a class on naloxone, which is the reversal drug if you take too much heroin and you go under. Same night, guy who was, and I laugh because it's a bit nervous, but it's ironic. Same night, the same guy who had attended ended up going over. So we all rushed up and were like, we're experts at this. Managed to bring him back round, got a footload of abuse. What are you doing? But unfortunately, the service had a manager who bullied the living daylights out of me. He basically was a narcissist. He was a control freak. He just wanted to be abusive and in power and respected and loved, but wanted to control everybody.
Why do you think he took a dislike to you? Was it because of your bubbly?
I think it was definitely part of it, but I'd taken what was a service that was really struggling, because not disrespecting anybody that had been involved in the service before, but they didn't have the experience of what I'd had in housing and the law and everything I'd picked up as a support worker. So I'd taken them from being okay to average to then being really good, and trying to get like a better process, which is something I'm really good at doing, is organising and building services.
So you were a threat?
Yeah, totally. And this guy, it was a recovery project, but we weren't recovery workers. We offered home like BAS accommodation, which is temporary accommodation for people coming out of prison, people that had come off the streets, that had been either evicted or broken down family relationships, people that were still in the madness, those that were in the sobriety houses. So we had a huge mix. But this chap, who was the operations manager, had spent 12 years in a prison in France because his crimes were breaking into safes and stealing diamonds, and along with being a huge heroin addict. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he hated me. I remember having a self-employed cleaner say to me, Amy, you need to stop problem solving as quickly as what you're doing, because he is abusing you, he's battering you, and he's going to put more on you.
It's terrible in society that people try to improve services and come forward with great idea are knocked by people constantly. The prison service was horrendous.
Yeah.
You know, people would come out with like a new induction program or something,
yeah,
and it'd be getting slammed and slated by people. Might get recognised by the powers that be, but the actual workforce would look at that person and...
It was hard because he was basically saying to me, I want you to become the lead project worker. And there was already a lead project worker. And this lead project worker went on holiday for 2 weeks, and he made me project worker. But when this other one come back, oh, well, you're going to share the job. Well, he hadn't a clue what he was doing. he told me, I broke down. This is where the final attempt for me to try and take my own life was because of this guy and because of the pressures he was putting under. I'd moved on to a relationship with who I'm with now, Andy. We're solid. We've been through some shit together, but I knew he would look after my kids. He would be the backbone of the family, and I would be better off dead because of the way that I can see my decline as a person. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was working ridiculously all hours, I wasn't getting paid overtime. I was doing this because I loved the clients. I loved and wanted to support them as much as I could. And also I think because I had suffered with needing approval, because I wasn't getting that approval, I continued to fight harder for it, when actually it was just ruining me. It was just absolutely beating me down. That night, Sunday night, dreading going back to work on Monday, I took myself off after having a bit to drink. Stuffed ties that you put on around your, what do you call it, dressing gown. I went to go and hang myself. I set off to go and hang myself. I walked round. I think I'd been out about 3 hours. I turned my mobile off. And I'd said goodbye in a way that I knew was acceptable to say goodbye, but without them making assumption that, what's up with her? I'd said I was just going to the shop.
So, you set off from house, you've got your cords. How are you feeling?
Oh, I just wanted to end it. I was so...
Was it a relief, walking around?
Yeah, it was. It was... The trouble was I was intoxicated as well, so I was irrationally thinking, and I knew that, and my brain was trying to say, yes, you're irrationally thinking because you're intoxicated, but you don't want to do this. And I remember seeing an elderly gentleman sat on a bench, and I sat with him, and he could see there was something wrong with me, and if he hadn't have said, are you okay, reached out to me, I don't think I'd have been here.
Back to that old one person.
He saved my life.
Yeah, one person there probably doesn't know it. No. Sean, when we're talking to him, one good manager, give him a chance.
Yeah.
Sadly, he's no longer here.
Yeah.
Makes me a bit teary-eyed, that. Obviously, it got to Sean.
Yeah.
I can't help the emotion. But, yeah, just one person taking time out, recognising.
It was lovely, but... unfortunately, because he coached me home, family found out. I had to tell it to a lady who was working in the same place as me. She was part of the problem. I'd got her a job. She was sleeping with my manager, who was a bastard to me, but my manager was also married to somebody else. And I was in this triangle, and I was threatened to keep my mouth shut, and all kinds of underneath shit unravelling, and it was horrible.
By doing the right thing.
Yeah, by coming back to whistleblowing. So I told him, I said I'd gone out, tried to hang myself. I said, but I need to just get back over it. I need to get on. I don't want to address it. I've addressed it. I'm fine. 3 days later, I go back to work. He takes me to Costa Coffee to do a back to work interview. No kind of warning that this was going to happen. Rips me to shreds in Costa Coffee. I was crying in front of people who were coming in for a brew. He told me I was more vulnerable than the clients that we were working with. He told me that I should have gone through and hung myself. He was not supportive in any way, shape or form. And that, I knew it wouldn't be long. The fire in my belly started to go, and I was like, I fucking hate you. Because you're never going to change. You're not here for the right reasons. You're here to throw your weight around and be self-worth, like have people admire you for all the wrong reasons.
Narcissist.
He was a prick, an absolute prick. And I've learnt that he's been sacked. So that's karma for you. Yeah.
Are you still taking meds?
No. I wasn't, so, was I? Yes, I do, I apologise. Before going to this place, the charity I worked for that I adored, I'd experienced a bit of a breakdown because of, again, my lifestyle. I was working for the homeless, getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. having to send the children away because I wanted to learn how to do this job, so they would stay with grandparents twice a week, and it was great for them, but it was hard work. And that's when I had a meltdown and went to see a psychiatrist. They got me into a psychiatrist. She was the one who diagnosed me, so yes, I was taking venlafaxine and quetiapine at the time. And I remember, that's right, when I went to see the doctor after this incident, they put me up even more. So there was no more, I couldn't really go any further higher than that. I think I was on 4 tablets a day and still to remain on the same amount of quetiapine.
Was there any sort of question of being sectioned or whatever? Were they concerned that you were going to... No?
No. There was, unfortunately, they just didn't have the facilities.
What I don't expect you to answer this. This is a question I'm putting out there. So Holly, yeah, has struggled with borderline.
Yeah.
Not quite a personality. I know I'm making like, bless her. She said the same. You know, she struggled, GP, seen people. Walks in, I can't remember whether a lad or a lass, walks in with 20 minutes, borderline personality disorder. You know, do people not want to diagnose people or put labels on them, or is it just some people? My GP, when I went through my prison service experience, shall we call it, was super supportive, and from day one, 2 weeks, got injured, you know, doing this job, can you change lifestyle, because that is now you're going to have a stroke or heart attack. Super supportive all the way through. You know, and I know other people. Were you under the, have you stayed in the same area all this time? So have you under the same GP?
Not in the same GP, but I've stayed in the vicinity. So what you've got is like primary care networks, which is different patches and different surgeries that work together. However, they all fall under the same jurisdiction, so they communicate with one another.
I understand that. So what I'm thinking, if you're medicated and you go in and it's a GP who don't particularly know you, and you say, you know, I need some help, can I have some medication? Did you just get that?
Oh yeah, they didn't give me like referrals to counselling, or the only time I was ever referred to counselling was CBT, when I was 8 months pregnant with Lucy, so it was for sleep therapy. I was like, okay, thanks very much, see you later, don't need this right now, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Counselling, it's really sad because you go under the primary care network, which is IAP service, and until pandemic really kicked in and the government recognised that they were bursting at the seams, they then gave them a lot of money, but it only reduced that 7-month waiting list to a 3-month waiting list. It needs to be immediate. People need to be jumped on.
I self-referred me. I was very lucky to Salford Psychological Services. My GP says you can refer yourself. I made a phone call, got a counsel appointment with a month. She sort of went, yeah, I can't deal with you.
Yeah.
You know, you're a bit complicated. So counsel, and then another 4 weeks, and I was seeing psychologists. They were amazing. However, you know, these services are to the max.
It's hard, isn't it? Because, you know, working for the NHS later years, I remember somebody saying to me, I'm really low, I take drugs, I know it's wrong, it numbs the pain, I can't be seen because there's no sort of dual diagnosis team anymore, there's no co-occurring team anymore, so it's either you address your drugs or your alcohol abuse and then you address your mental health. But how can you do that when you're not, you know, coming off drugs you really need, or you know, an abuse and addiction to something? You need the support of mental health to carry you through, to get you to understand what it is that maybe you turn to drugs and alcohol and addiction in the first place. It's really sad because that's something that is so desperately needed. It's a huge gap in the market. And people say, well, people that take drugs and this, that and the other, they just judge them, and it's like, they're doing it for a reason. Yes, okay, the behaviour behind them when they're on their high or trying to get their next fix, it's wrong, and that'll take me into the prison service. But there was always a trigger.
Prison service?
No. Yeah, prison service. So, yeah, one of the reasons why I reached out to Sam is because I am actually an ex-officer. So no matter what I'd gone through, I decided that when I left the drug and alcohol service, which I was gutted about, because I loved it. I was in a dark place, and I thought, oh, I know, join the prison service. It might make me feel whole again.
Yeah, I've got to question now. You know, what were you thinking?
I wanted
To help
prove
people.
and to help people, yeah. I wanted to prove to myself that I was worthy, that I could do this. I was a strong individual. But I also wanted to try and help with the rehabilitation side of in the prison service, as the recruitment was for key working, which was a new incentive. Loved it. Loved it. Loved the training. Unfortunately, doing CNR, which is control and restraint training.
Were you on meds still?
I was on medication, and
Okay.
I was huge. My breathing wasn't the best. My health wasn't the best. But they still put me through. And I remember tackling a huge bloke. He was an officer. And he was a really big bodybuilder. And he'd been doing competitions. So I took him down with another really good friend of mine. Two really good friends. One male, one female. Really tall. They had the advantage of their height. We managed to take him down, and I literally was trying to he was in the prone position, and we were trying to put him into a final lock, and I got dragged. And I remember looking at my friend, like looking straight through her. She's talking to me, and I wasn't registering what she was saying. And they threw me against the wall, threw my knees up to me and said, breathe. I'd forgotten to breathe, and I was literally about to pass out. And I just burst into tears.
You got the helmet on and the visor?
No, thankfully, I'd done it as a spontaneous response.
Okay.
So the spontaneous was what you get trained in when there's a kick-off on the landing. So you're not actually kitted up in your refinery. And that moment set self-doubt in my head. I'm not fit enough. I can't do this job. But okay, we could work at it. Went in. It was okay. I worked on the detox wing, having history in the drug and alcohol sector. Unfortunately, you get staff in there who the ego affects them. The power gets to the head. I wasn't strong enough in a position to say, well, jog on, you're not going to affect me. Fell into a trap of bullying again by a manager who I think was threatened by me because of the knowledge that I had from being in the sector before. The fact that when I walked onto the landings after I'd qualified, I had my name heckled, and I turned around and was like, shit. Cons.
Yeah, of course they're going to know
me.
you. Yeah, if you worked in drug services and treatment programs and
Again.
housing, they're going to know you.
Employees, though,
Well, listen, we've all been there, haven't we?
thought I was corrupt.
Well, you know, I've said this before, I can't tell you how many times, you know, a prisoner's getting wrapped up, restrained or whatever, on the back, you're just walking on.
Yeah.
They'll go, you're right, Miss Samuth. All right, kid, how are you?
Yeah.
And staff will be like, fucking tosser.
I know.
You know, looking at you.
I know.
But, you know, if you get on with people, you get on with them, don't you? Especially if you've helped them.
Oh, I wanted to hug one, Sam. I saw this guy, he'd really gone through the mill. He was a recovering alcoholic. Unfortunately, he'd fallen back off the wagon. He'd lost so much weight. I looked at him and I went, Mark, what have you done? Because at that time, although I'm not to take it personally, I spent a lot of time with these guys. And I wanted to hug him and I was like, I can't hug you. But you know that if it was situationally different, I'd be wrapping my arms around you right now and saying, come on, we can get you through this.
Care Bear. You know, people have said that.
Yeah.
I was a Care Bear, so you're in good company.
Yeah. It's amazing when you feel
I didn't hug anyone. But yeah, you know.
And I remember going on to the general population because I was on the introductory detox wing and the rehabilitation side. So sometimes you'd have to go over to cover on different wings. And there was another lad in general population who I'd worked with on the out. And again, he come running over to give me a hug. And I was like, I can't. It was so sad because there was lads in there that I knew were good lads. They'd just fallen into the wrong path. They'd done some stupid things.
Of course.
But I also the job itself, I remember sitting in healthcare and listening to somebody tell me and admit to me the reasons why he was charged and inside for triple murder. So you have such a diverse thing in there, don't you? You know, you're talking to somebody, and another lad from Cardiff who I became quite friendly with, he'd sing, "'Cause I'm in love with you." As soon as I walk onto the landing, I'm like, shut the fuck up, I'm not corrupt. So you feel as though you're constantly being judged.
Well, it is, isn't it? It's because of that macho environment that, you know, I have got to say, vast majority of people, not so much Forest Bank, there weren't many staff around. If you're on a wing, there was only one other person, but certainly at Strangeways and that, you know, a lot of decent staff around. Yeah, you know, some people I really got on with, good friends, even though I never socialised with them out.
Yeah.
But they were still good friends. You know, Nobby Nobble, I always talk about him. You know, just rip the piss out of me all the time. You soft Yorkshire get all the time. But equally, you know, that guy would be seen as an alpha male. However, I'll tell you, he got a soft side.
Yeah.
If I were working with him, he'd be doing apps and all sorts and sorting stuff out for people. And he had good communication skills and got on.
Yeah.
You know, and he was dry as a bone. So it is a tough gig.
Sad time for me. I wasn't there long. I was there just short of a year.
Yeah, let me just say on that front, that is the norm now, love. Yeah. You know, I am quite sure the private sector, we've had a little chat about this, the private sector just want to turn people over. You know, 70% turnover of staff, 2 minutes, 2 weeks, just shy of 2 years on your way. We've got best out here. No pay rise, no extra holidays, no pension. They're not bothered. They're setting youngsters on. Never ending. You know, 17, 18-year-olds leaving school, 17, 18, 19, 20, never worked. Here's a job, 22 grand, work overtime. No life experience.
And that was something that I was, unfortunately, I saw a lot. There was a lot of young lasses and lads who couldn't tell a hardened criminal when they were being a bit shirty and a bit arsey. Just get behind your fucking door. Because I would never normally speak to somebody in that way. I'm very conscious about how I talk to people. But there are times when you have to be assertive. And if you cannot have a but landings, for me, walking on them, I'd go on twos, I'd lean over the bars, I'd watch people, and I'd go, right, fuckers, there's 86 of you, there's 2 of us, you've all got eyes on me, so I'm going to do my best to have my eyes all over you guys as well. But, so I was just I was just comfortable. It was like being on, it was performing, but you've got to be yourself.
Of course you have, because they'll suss you out straight away. You try me something you're not, they'll be absolutely all over you. Thousands. Like I say, hundreds of interactions every day. You know, when you're unlocking them, when you're serving meals, all this bollocks, they're watching you all day. You know,
in an instant they can tell when you're in a bad mood.
Of course they are.
You've had some shitty news.
But also, if you are an approachable person, they will listen to you. If you're the complete arsey twat who does fuck all for anyone, they're more likely to like rear up when you say, you know, whereas you, come on you fucker, get behind your door or whatever. And, you know, top management or whatever, or people on the out who want to call everyone residents now instead of prisoners. I won't be doing that. They are prisoners, and all the lads I know now who are ex-prisoners,
they refer to themselves as it, don't they?
Of course they do.
And as cons as well.
Of course they do. I do. Sorry about that, guys. Camera's just run out. Talking for Britain, as women do.
I could win the gold medal.
Defend me, because people will be on it. He hates women and stuff like that. No, I don't, obviously. Right, so back over to your man, as it were, and we'll wrap this up.
It was really sad. I'd experienced somebody who'd come into prison for the first time. Wasn't really a major offence, okay, you know, everyone's got to take responsibility, but in my eyes, you know, I'd worked with murderers and people who were rapists and child sex offenders and all sorts. And I think this chap was something to do with his council tax. So He come in, he'd explained that he was suicidal. We put him on a constant, then 5 an hour, and we reduced it as we could, 2 conversations a day. We got him a job, and he was doing really well. Down to 1 conversation in the morning, done that. He'd come back from work, gone behind his door after he'd had his dinner. We did roll call. Roll call is where you have to count all the prisoners in the jail to ensure that there's been nobody who's escaped, so everyone's got to be accountable for. And it is wrong, isn't it? It comes back wrong a lot of the time.
Forest Bank, 4 days, rolling correct.
Unreal.
You know, rolling over because there was an error somewhere and they couldn't find it.
And the issue is when that happens, nobody is allowed to be unlocked from the cell because you just can't operate it. It took us around half an hour for this roll to come right, which is pretty quick, to be fair. Unlocked him. I was downstairs. I was literally just at the... So we had 2 wings and an office. So I was at the gate, sort of just as I was coming out of the office. And as I turned round, they'd unlocked him. He got on the bars and he just jumped to the floor. And as it was a private prison and it was only 2 stories high, we didn't have netting, as we didn't need it for health and safety, which I think they should review. He went to dive bomb and he twisted himself in midair, and as he landed on his heels, straight through his bones, broke his wrist.
Lower legs.
Yeah. Just a mess. And at first I was just like, shit. And you just see me come running onto the landing, sat by his head, had his head into my knees because he wanted the warmth. I was talking to him, I was trying to keep him calm, and we managed to get a first response over from the medical team, which then everyone was locked back up again, and we got the ambulance. It was a long time, which felt like 5 minutes while we waited from the incident to the removal by ambulance. It was just incredible how fast it goes through. I got a hug from a manager, but there was some other staff.
Good on the manager.
Yeah,
Good on the manager.
She literally just embraced me, but I was in shock, and although she was trying to communicate to see where I was just like, I don't really quite understand. I'm
soft
okay.
Arse.
Yeah.
You're a soft arse.
Yeah.
I hate that, me.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate that.
But then there was other managers that come on and other staff that come on who have just got fucking egos that I just think, get a grip. Who do you think you are? Green Mile, Percy, who is the governor's nephew, who is a shit in the Green Mile. That's what I used to call them. It's like, stop being a fucking Percy. But it affected me. I was okay. I come home, told me the half. I was like, because he was training at the time. He said, oh, I'm okay. And, you know, I'm really proud that it's not affected me. How wrong was I? Wow. I would flinch in my sleep. I would fear going to sleep. I would see it. I'd try to run. I became just a holy mess. One of the care team gave me a leaflet and said, if you're struggling, ring this number. But without actually saying to me, you might experience night terrors, you might experience disturbed sleep because you're jumping, you know, you might fear this, you might smell that, you might feel the anxieties, and, you know, if you can start to pick up them signs, then please get in touch and we'll help you. They didn't give a shit. It was, right, you're a number, get on with it.
Care team. Me Julie, lovely lass. She was what the care team should be about when I were at Strangeways. Cared. Guess what? Yeah. She cared.
Yeah.
You know, and you'd have a conversation where you could tell she cared if they're involved with something. A lot of people on the care team very much, it's on my CV type thing.
Yeah.
I'm
in OMU now, I'm concentrating on that, or I'm in security, I'm concentrating on that. There needs to be a dedicated care team, doesn't there?
Well, there's no support, is there?
There isn't.
You get your manager who gives you a hug, good on her. You know, I've worked with some fantastic managers, very supportive, make sure the staff are all right, things like that. But then, you know, while there'll be a good SO with an officer who hasn't been involved, who is white and young and shaken, who may be getting sent home, there's 7 people here, fucking get some nuts. What's up with a fucking prick? No time for that.
Yeah.
Saw too much of that.
Yeah.
You know, this macho bollocks crap.
Yeah.
I often wonder whether some of these things will come back to haunt people
I hope
when
do.
they actually leave.
Yeah.
You know, incidents and that, how cold they are now. Just support your fucking colleagues.
Yeah. There's no I in team, is there? Give each other the credibility and the support and understanding. I was watching Lee's podcast on here and I really wanted to say that.
Lee Benchcrew?
Yeah.
No, he's not. He's done his time now.
No,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. No. I know what you mean.
But you know what? How could Lee have possibly have gone to head of security or his manager or another manager and say, I'm having financial issues, I'm drinking, I am struggling with the job, my relationship's struggling, and that I've been offered to do a job? How could he have gone to say that for support without persecution of you either get pushed out the door or you get found to be sacked?
Well, yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but while other people are sort of in denial, not prepared to deal with things, you know, they'll deal with corruption on one level, i.e. if someone's bringing something in, but they won't deal with people who are beating the crap out of people and things like that.
I know it's very backwards, isn't it? Very, very backwards.
Yeah, it is.
So it's so misunderstood, and you know what? Lee did his time. He knew he did wrong. I would say to people that are in that position who I have suspicions because of gossip, which is an evil thing. But if you are involved in corruption, just fucking get out.
Well, it's like he said. I saw young people leave and never come back.
Yeah, get the fuck out because you are gonna end up in a mess. And no matter how much money you're making from it, get out.
Well, the thing is that Lee's probably an exception, because I know for a fact people who've got involved with a lot of bit of money and then have had nothing.
Yeah.
You know, we could talk all day on this subject, because then there's obviously I'm working in a male prison.
Yeah.
Females who get charmed, won over, take stuff in for nothing, fall in love, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not just. That's because obviously I've been in a male jail.
Yeah.
Forest Bank as well, a lot of corrupt females. It was a relationship thing.
It was weird actually, because I have experienced and know people, because I worked in a male jail, and I don't get it, but I understand. I understand that people's vulnerabilities.
Do you know what, love?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I perhaps should have said this a couple hours earlier. You don't mind calling you love?
No, not at all.
I'm from Sheffield. I'm from Sheffield. Yeah, I got pounded on the training course for saying that. Diversity and all that. Don't call people love. And you know what? Sometimes it looked at me like I was taking a piss, but when you spent 40 years of your life calling every... Anyway, we're losing the point. With the female thing, right, a lot of relationships start at work. Yeah. You know, when I was younger, a lot of people I met, you know, I'd go out with, were met at work. Yeah, we all know it's prison and the offices and prisons, but guess what?
Yeah,
I'm going to quote my mate, KK. It's a quote, I've used a lot of this, and it's right. She always said this to me. It could have been a compliment, maybe it wasn't. She says, you've got something more than money and good looks, which is charm. And guess what? There's a lot of charm. There will be prisoners you got on with who are funny lads and cheeky and charming, yeah?
Yeah.
That, you know, they always said, don't they, very cliched, friendliness, not friends and all that.
Yeah.
But people do fall for other people. Yeah. I think the saddest at Strangeways was a lass who was 26 who had been married maybe 12 months and then fell for a prisoner. Oh. You know, that is how the other half had survived that, I don't know, but illicit relationships. And like I say, some lass taking 50 grand's worth of drugs into Liverpool jail. I'm not saying anyone did. I'm using that as an example, or Forest Bank or Strangeways. Yeah. Don't think they're getting anything from it. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. It is. Corruption and relationships and the whole system. It's like last year, so me and Andy he's a prison officer. We split up last year. I'd had enough. I'd left the job because I was unsupported. I had a manager that bullied me. I had another officer who was intimidated by me, caused a lot of grief for me, said that all I do is bawl, scream and shout. Of course, when you fart in that place, it gets round as though you've shit yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Of course it does. Of course it.
You learn so much about yourself.
Before I went to Strangeways, I was warned by a prisoner and an officer at Forest Bank, Mr. Samworth, the prisoner said, not the other officer.
Yeah.
It's a den of iniquity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in relationships. There's a lot of family strength. You know, some families have got people, God, I put my foot in it so many times. But yeah, it is a tough place if you're being yourself. That's why a lot of people, I think, drink too much.
Yeah.
Extremely stressed because they're not themselves and they maybe see things they're not happy with.
Yeah.
And again, not every day. I'm not talking about every day. People are getting beaten up and that, but they're not able to be themselves and they just go with the flow.
Yeah. It's really difficult. I got to the stage
You didn't go with the flow, did you?
No. I was somebody who had to be authentic because it was the only way I knew how to be. Best thing ever to win some of the cons over. I was on pitch patrol.
What's pitch patrol?
Basically, we had a field and that's
exercise.
Where, yeah, we had I can't remember. We had two types. We had two different pitches, but you have to be on there in case there's anything that comes over the wall, parcels full of drugs. So watching out for drones. You know, you're not allowed unauthorized aircrafts to go over, so you've got to be there and watching. So you can't leave the pitch. You just walk round and monitor it. You get heckled and all sorts. I remember standing outside the basic wing. They've got no TVs, nothing. The board's shitless, and I got big lady, miss, you fat bitch. And the wing I worked on was here, and they were all going, don't fucking speak to miss like that. And I'm like, it's all right, it's all right. So I just turned around and said, is that all you've got? If you can think of something more original, I know you're on basic, I'll buy you a packet of biscuits as long as you share it with me. And all the other lads, yes, miss! And I'd love to have seen his face, but I don't know who it was.
Humour is what survives, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. If you haven't got that or quick wittiness, be prepared because you get slammed. But banter really takes you a long way in there. Really does help. Like that lad singing, I don't even remember what it was, but I'm so in love with you. Every time I'd walk past or walk onto the landing. And I remember when I was stood in healthcare with that guy who had done triple murder. He was about just short of 7 foot, built like a brick shit house. He said, miss, do you want me to stay with you? Just in case anything happens. And I thought, you know what? Top lad, thank you. But no, you're all right. But it just shows that they will look after you, don't they? They will look and have you back to a degree.
I think it's changing a lot now because there's no staff-prisoner relationships, no dynamic security. Everything is task-orientated. And like we've been saying, you know, when we come out of this pandemic and prisons start opening up, the staff that's young, extremely young, that have been in the job 2 years, never had more than maybe 10, 15 or 20 out for showers and that. You know, there's nothing there. There's no staff-prisoner relationships. Nobody knows each other.
It's going to be difficult, and I know that there's been some prison officers, because of the whole contact issue, they've not even done the CNR training, and they've still been allowed to go and qualify.
I've been told at the training centre that people have been refusing to do parts of the CNR. They've been refusing to do the control and restraint at end, where you do the, I hate saying this word after talking about JSACs, the role play.
Yeah.
But you know, in your CNR, you get stuck in, you get kitted up.
Yeah.
And you know, it's go in the cell, deal with this guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what, lass? I think we're going to do. We're going to wrap it up. I'm gagging for coffee.
Yeah.
Aimee, we're going to have her back. We're going to get a bit of time. She has got projects underway around mental health.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your complete honesty about your relationships, you know, the abuse. Because again, people looking out will say, well, if someone's been abusive, just leave them. There's plenty of people that have been stuck in 20 years with the same abusive person and things like that. You know, but credit to you. You survived.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah.
You're unmedicated.
Yeah.
You're doing stuff with mental health.
Yeah.
Your kids are fit and healthy.
Yeah.
You got a lovely partner.
I get married on Monday.
Do you?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, she gets married on Monday. There better be some congratulations.
There'll be cake.
But most of all, you know, this borderline personality disorder, you've worked all your life.
Yeah.
You know, so we say you're functioning or whatever. The meds, they're talking about putting weight on, how it makes you feel and everything else. I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. You know what? You can shut it down, say what you want, and
no,
I'll see thee when you're finished.
The one thing that I'd like to finally say is I've come off medication because it was the right time for me, and I'm losing weight because I'm happy. Don't let your mental health define you. Don't let it define you in a negative light, and don't let your mental health be an excuse for your behaviour. If you've done something shitty or wrong or made a mistake, have the balls to hold your hand up and say, I'm sorry, I've made a mistake. Yes, your mental health could be a contributing factor to that, but it isn't an excuse for being a dick. But it is also, you know, not an excuse to remain in a dark place, because mental health, when it's good and when you're high, some of the best comedians have it. And I know that people say I'm a natural born comedian at times. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Yeah. Thank you.
Say it.
Reach to speak out?
No, I'll see thee.
I'll see thee.
We're coming back with that one. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
I'll see thee.
I'll see thee.